Good morning.
Good morning.
There we go. How many of y'all heard me speak before? Anybody? Anyone? Bueller? Hi. So here's how I work. I talk very loudly and I talk a lot. Shut me up, ask me questions. Okay, this will be a lot more fun, a lot more interesting if y'all are talking to me. And I'm not just talking at you, particularly since we're talking about lawyer stuff. Who finds lawyer things boring? It's okay, admit it, lawyer things are boring. It's fine, I don't care. I think finance is boring, so how about that? So, what are we talking about today? Any guesses? Anyone?
Employment contract.
There we go. Guess what? I have bribes for people who talk to me. Winning the bride prize. I might throw it, but I don't trust my aim. So, we are talking about negotiating employment contracts, and actually, first of all, thank y'all very much for having me on this very, very early morning. So, let's get started. And I want to just go ahead and answer the first question that I know you're all thinking. So you're a lawyer, you're a recruiter, we saw you work for Advanced Resources. What? Who are you? What do you do? Well, I went to law school at the University of Wisconsin. That's the blind Bucky right there. I graduated so many years ago, and I practiced as an insurance defense lawyer for 2 years, just about. Wanted to throw myself off a bridge. There's only so many ways you can deny a car accident is your fault before you get bored with it. So it just wasn't my passion. It was time to go. Let's roll out. Started looking for a new job, and handily, my company, Safeco Insurance, was bought out by Liberty Mutual, which was awesome. It was my first encounter with the severance agreement, number one, and number two, they paid me not to come back. Boom, done. Loved it. So started doing employment law with the Bellows Law Group. Some of you might know the name Bellows. It's not the judge. It's the former president of the ABA, the American Bar Association. So I was there for 7.5 years, I think. 7.5 years. Met Patty Bogosh through networking, as we all have, because this woman knows everyone. And she and I sat down and we were just chatting it up a bit, talking, and she was learning about my background, I was learning about what she does over at Advanced Resources, and she said, you know, the first time I heard you speak, I thought you'd be a great recruiter. And I said, well, too bad, I'm a lawyer. She said, no, I think you're actually a recruiter. I said, I don't know what it is you're talking about, but you know, I'm kind of bored at Bellows Law Group. It's a great firm, but you know, I've done all I can, helped a lot of executives negotiate your way through agreements. She said, aha, executives, guess who you'd be working with if you came to work for me? So, long story short, or short story long, depending on how you feel about the story so far, I joined Advanced Resources. And I joined them in July. Yes, I've been there since July, and I've been helping out folks like yourselves, senior level finance and accounting professionals, connecting them to strategic contract and project roles. It's been a blast, but in the meantime, because I need things to keep me out of trouble, I also launched the Bailey Law Firm. Because why not? Sometimes some of my old clients, sometimes some new clients need some help negotiating agreements. So I'm very niche as far as my legal practice goes. I only negotiate agreements for executives in transition. So I like to call myself the ultimate employment counselor, right? Because we all remember employment counselors, career counselors in college, at least when I was there, they sort of led you in the right direction. They couldn't necessarily help you find a job. I am here to lead you in the right direction and help look at your resume, help make networking connections, and so on and so forth. Once you get there, y'all are so high up, you might need someone to review the agreement. So that's just to prove that I know what I'm talking about, right? So Super Bowl's coming up. I used the football theme. I hope y'all enjoy it as much as I do. Side note, I am a Packers fan, but I'm still a good person. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about. Here's the pregame when you're negotiating an employment agreement. Here's what I want to know as an attorney, what it is that's already happened in the background. What job and what compensation are you leaving at your current role, if you are in fact transitioning from one role to another? What leverage does the other side have? What leverage do you have? So when I was ready to leave Safeco, their leverage was, I needed to get out now, I can't do it anymore. My leverage was, yeah, but I'm awesome. So you need to know both sides, right, to help the negotiations. Are the business terms open points of negotiations? The salary, the severance, or have y'all already done it? A lot of people come to me, they've already done it. Look, I'm going in, I'm making $350 million a day. When I get severed, they're going to keep paying me $350 million a day with a $10 million kicker. And I'm only going to work Monday through Thursday, 10 till 2. How do I get that job? That's my next question. And then we'll talk about what's left to do. Am I only talking about the legal terms, or do you also need a car allowance and you haven't negotiated that, right? At what point are the attorneys brought into the process? Depends on who you ask. If you ask the attorneys right away, if you ask the people doing the negotiations later, how many of y'all have secretly called the attorneys the deal breakers? It's okay, you can admit it, this is a safe space. I won't take it personally. And what form, length, and detail do the parties prefer? So let's just get a quick read on the room. Who here has an employment agreement? Raise your hand, anyone? Awesome. Who here has had an offer letter? Anyone? Yeah? Who here just walked in and took the job, like I did when I got my first job at Walker Music? Anyone? I know you have. Come on, somebody had a summer job. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about form, length, and detail. So on your tables, there is a packet that I have given to you as a parting gift. It looks like this. It says Morningstar 10Q on the front. Behold, it's awesome. I just want to give you guys a chance to follow along to see what I'm talking about. It would have been a lot of words for me to put up on the screen. So this is just to highlight what an actual employment agreement looks like if you haven't seen one. And this one is really well balanced. That's why I used it. If you're wondering, it's the CEO of Hershey's from 2012. So, any questions so far? Am I talking too fast? No? Good? We're going good? All right, so kickoff, the game plan, the typical structure of the employment agreement is what we're here to talk about. First quarter, parties, contract terms, scope of duties, compensation and benefits during employment. Basically, the first couple pages of this agreement. Second quarter, termination of employment, how and when, duties of the parties on termination, restrictive covenants. Third quarter, dispute resolution, general boilerplate. We'll probably skip over that because I will put you to sleep and it's going to be a very long day if I do that. So just know that they exist. And the fourth quarter, we'll talk about the release and the form. Okay, deal? Overtime's questions. But obviously, ask me questions in the meantime, please. Yes?
I have a question on kind of the pregame.
Yeah?
If you're walking into a situation and you don't have, you're on the short side of the leverage. You know, let's say this is your only opportunity, you don't have something else going on there. So how do you perhaps create more leverage when you don't have much leverage going in?
Good question. Do you want to press? Do you trust my aim?
Yeah.
So that's a great question. For y'all that didn't hear it, what do you do if you're on the short end of the leverage stick? And I say, my first question is, how do you know you're on the short end of the leverage stick? Is it just because you are currently unemployed, looking to find a new role, and this is the role that you want? Or is it something else? So let me tell you a little story. I love telling stories. When I graduated from law school, I was looking for a job. And I had a couple of interviews, things didn't work out, blah, 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 whatever. It was November. And I graduated in May. So I said, oh my God, it's been 6 months, and I'm just interning with a mentor up in Milwaukee, which is where I'm from. And I finally got a job offer. Long story how I got there. The moral of that story is networking is key, because I got it from networking. And they made me an offer. It was the only offer that I had that was anything real, really, because I was moving to Chicago and I needed to be able to pay rent, eat, pay for my cable bill. And they offered me, I'm making up numbers here, they offered me $35,000, let's say. And I said, I did the calculation, I said, awesome, I'd be able to live in a box, in the Loop, just outside my office, not gonna work. So I counted. I was brand new, fresh out of law school, and I said, yeah, about that 35, I'm gonna need 45. And they said, all right, we'll talk about it, we'll think about it. They came up, they gave me 48. Made those numbers up, whatever. The point is, sometimes it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. Sometimes you just need to ask. Because if you think about it, when you've been on the other side, and I know you've all probably hired someone at some point, where did you start them with the offer that you gave them? Did you start them with what you were willing to pay?
No.
No. Who does that? Because if they're going to take lower, good. You just saved some money on your bottom line, right? So you started them at $20 an hour when you probably would have paid $25. sometimes it's not just the amount either, right? So let's say Patty, when she hired me, she said, I'll give you 5 days vacation. I said, what am I going to do with 5 days vacation? So maybe the money was right, but it was something else. Patty, I need 25 days of vacation. Patty told me to go kick rocks, and we settled somewhere in the middle, right? Because it's not always about the money. Maybe you need to pick up your kids at 4 o'clock. I just had a candidate that this happened. It was this role, it was really far out. He lives in, I don't remember where he lives. Let's say Schaumburg, and the role was in Vernon Hills. Does that make sense? Are those far away? The suburbs are kind of a mystery to me. So just assume it was far away. The money was right, the vacation time was right, everything was fine, but he needed to get home to pick up his kids and to take this job. It was an extra 30 minutes on his commute. Granted, he left it to me to tell them that and say, hey, I need to leave at 4:30 rather than 5 o'clock. I said, you know, thanks, Jim, appreciate that, but I did it, right? So sometimes you need to find it's not just the money, you need to find where else is there wiggle room. And sometimes you're on the short end of the stick, you're gonna take it no matter what. That doesn't mean you can't ask. Does it technically mean that you countered and they can pull the offer? Sure, but how long does the interview process take? Forever? Especially in this market when it's a hot candidates market. They've been interviewing people, they finally settled on the right one, they finally found the person that they wanna be married to on an employment basis. And this person says, hey, I need $5 extra, or I need an extra day of vacation. Are they really going to say, well, dude, you should have taken what we gave you? No, they're probably going to say, okay. Or they're going to say, well, you know, really love to have you, that's your decision, but it's final offer. And you're going to say, all right, sign right? Grant, did I answer your question? Or did I? All right, cool. Cool, so let's talk about the easy-ish part of the agreement. Parties. It's usually in the wherefore clause or the therefore clause. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I just want to point out why I'm talking about it. Who do you work for? Right? Who do you work for? It seems simple question, right? Is it a simple question? So let's say that you work for Quaker Oats. Who do you work for? Do you work for Quaker? Do you work for PepsiCo? Or if you work for Tropicana, do you work for Tropicana? Do you work for Quaker? Do you work for PepsiCo? Who do you work for? Who signs your paycheck? It's important to know in the event you have to sue them later. So just notice it. It's not a big deal, but it's just something I want to point out, that sometimes you don't work for the person that you work for, right? You don't necessarily work for the person, the company that's on your business card. So just something you want to know. Yes?
I got a question for you. In that kind of situation, is it better to be further up the food chain? I mean, is it better working for PepsiCo than Tropicana because there might be more opportunities with the PepsiCo? I think Pepsi owns Tropicana.
Yes, Pepsi owns Tropicana, I think you're right. And, okay, ready for the official lawyer answer? I have to give it at least once. It depends. Right? Some companies you can only move up in that silo. Some companies like Walmart in Bettendorf, Arkansas is Walmart. That's it. So there are no silos. It all rolls up to that big company. So it sort of depends on the company culture. And also in the employment agreement, it really only matters if you have to sue on the agreement or on the severance agreement, a discrimination claim, for example. That's when it truly matters because you need to pin it on someone. In terms of promotions, this agreement can always be redone. It's just something that's official right now. We can always redo it. So it depends. I had to give it at least once. I always try to avoid it, but it really does sometimes just depend. The contract term, is it a finite period, and what happens at the end? Another one I don't want to spend a ton of time on. But you see here on the back of the first page, so this is double-sided. It's the second page. It refers to the term. Most of us do not have a term for our employment, okay? Most of us do not have an agreement that says, or an offer letter, or anything that says this agreement will end on December 31st, 2017. Even if it says that, it doesn't really say that, okay? Reason being, we're all, say it with me now, at will employees. Anybody know what that means? It's okay, I'm gonna give you the answer. I'm just curious if anybody knows. Yes, so what that means is that you can, either party can terminate the employment agreement at any time for any reason or no reason, so long as it isn't a discriminatory reason. That last part only applies to the employer. So if you walk in today and they say, hey, thanks for coming in, Derek, you don't work here anymore. You're gonna be like, that sucks. But you have there's nothing you can say. They can do that. If you have an actual term, now let's say you have a term because you are the only guy in the history of ever to have a term. It says, well, they say, hey, thanks for coming in. You don't work here anymore. You're like, dope. You still need to pay me through the end. Appreciate you. Thanks for that, for paying me not to come back. And they'll say, we'll buy you out, blah, 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 and then it's the whole thing. This is why nobody has a term, because companies don't want to pay you for time that you're working unless they're getting something in exchange, which we'll talk about at the end. Scope of duties. This one's always my favorite. Okay, so you guys are really high up executives, right? And you are all really, really, really philanthropic, let's say. Let's say you give a lot of time to the Respiratory Health Association, or Pause Chicago, or give me some other nonprofits y'all are active in.
Theater company.
The theater company, anybody else?
FEI.
FEI, sort of. Well, I'll take it. I'll take it. Actually, yeah, let's do FEI. We have this meeting from 7, and if I stop talking early enough till 9, right? But your work hours, office hours are 8 till 5:30. Have you dedicated all of your office time to your job? No, you clearly haven't. Would you technically be in violation of this agreement? Yeah, technically. Technically, they could say you didn't fulfill, you breached part of the contract. If they did, I have questions about why you work for that company, but how do you get out of that? You have this section here in number 2, and C. So on the 3rd page, it says business time. It's a really thick paragraph there. Let me summarize it for you. You will you will give all of your business time, full faith and credit to this job, except for when you're doing something philanthropic, something that promotes the company. Sometimes education will be in there if they're paying for you to get your MBA, for example, or if you're doing FEI events, or if you're on a board. As long as it does not conflict with your duties here, or it's in direct competition. So if you work for Walmart, you can't sit on Target's board of directors. Seem fair? Understand? Got that? Cool. So let's talk about getting paid, which is one of my favorite things when it comes to having a job. You get paid, right? Compensation and benefits during employment are obviously taken care of here. You'll see it on number 3. What's important about paragraph 3 on this back page here is that it lists out all the ways that this guy gets paid. So there's base salary, there's your annual bonus program, there's your LTIPs, your promotion-based equity incentive compensation, RSUs, for example, stock options, for example, performance shares, and any other incentive plan with which we might want to pay you. Then you flip the page. He also gets a retirement benefit, pension and welfare benefits, perks. There's a whole world of perks that I didn't know about until I started negotiating this agreement. I thought perk was a form of coffee. Perk coffee, that's what my mother called it. Oh, what, because my mom's the only one who ever called it perk coffee? There's a ton of things. You want them all here. Why do you want them all here? Anybody got a guess? Anyone?
Binding.
Bueller. Say that again?
Binding.
It's binding, that's a good one. Anyone else? Lucas?
Just lay it out.
Got a reason? To lay it out. So in lawyers' terms, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. He said I would get $5,000 a month as long as I hit my goal. Yeah, did he write it down? No. Did he pay you $5,000? No, he only gave me $1,000. Is it in the agreement? No. Well, what are you talking to me for? You didn't write it down. It doesn't exist. It's not here. So you want every single thing you could possibly have written down. If they want to give you something more than that, cool. And if they do it often enough, I might have an argument that it's now part of the agreement because it's how we've been operating. But when you're starting out, please write everything down. So, quick story. I have a client who got a promotion. And we did this whole offer letter when he first got the job. It took forever because I was dealing with people who were really, really stubborn and weren't reading the red lines that I was sending. And he gets there and he finds out he needs a car. He's moving from Texas to New York. They're paying his reload expenses, blah, blah. He leaves his car in Dallas because he still needs to travel back and forth. But mostly in New York, he doesn't need a car until he finds out he needs to go visit plants in Brooklyn and Harlem. And he's officing in Manhattan. So the man needs a car. And they have a fleet of company cars. So he's like, cool, can I use those? Awesome, can we put it in the agreement? They're like, no, we can't have that written down. So I said to him, bro, you're my boy, but that doesn't exist. That means that they don't have to give you that company car. He's like, well, I'm not spending $30,000 to get a car just so I can go to Brooklyn for them the 3 days out of the week that I'm here. I said, well, you better work that out with them. I don't know what you want me to do about it. If it's not in the agreement, it doesn't exist. So they don't have to give you anything. So I've harped enough about that. That's kind of a big point for me. Business terms, salary, bonus, specificity, be really specific, LTIPs. Benefits and vacation should also be in there, although y'all never take vacation, but in the event that you ever do, you want to know that you can, and how many days you can be gone. The answer is none, because with your cell phone and laptops and iPads and Microsoft services and Wi-Fi's and MiFi's and whatever else other you have to keep people tethered to you, means you're not really gone. But you want to know how many days you can be in a different city, at least. All right, moving on to the second quarter, terminations. Starts on the very next page. We've got a definition of cause, good reason, we'll go through those. So I have to tell you, when I started at Bellows, it was 2009. So yes, I got laid off in 2008 with everybody else in the history of the world. And I started in 2009 doing employment law. Guess which I had more of? Severance agreements, severance and separation agreements, or employment agreements? Severance agreements, right? Everybody was getting laid off in 2008, 2009, into 2010. I don't think I touched my first employment agreement until 2011, because nobody got hired. Just joking, I'm kidding. But we're gonna talk about what the second quarter is about is how to get terminated, duties of the parties, and restrictive covenants. Love my little guy, he's like, but wait, more to do. That's me when I'm trying to reach something on a top shelf. Uh-oh, we're stuck on that guy. I just thought that was funny. You're better. That's no. All right, so getting out. Termination of employment. Let me just click through all of these. Okay, so that's these next few pages. They're out of order up there, but so let's talk about some ways one might get terminated, because everybody's getting terminated at some point. How might you get terminated? You die. Way number one. Any other ways? Get sick. Disability. Anybody else? Oh, I owe you mints. I got like 3 more mints here, people. Anybody got? How many of you just want me to give you the answer? Terminated with and without cause. Absolutely. So, death, it's obvious it does need to be defined. The only reason it would go in here is if you get a particular severance benefit or separation benefit from it. Disability. I think it's in here. Who defines disability? Any guesses?
Unfortunately, the insurance company that the company had.
Doctor.
Maybe to both of them. So disability is on page 8 here that they've defined it. It actually can be defined by this agreement. So it might be the insurance company, that's true. It might be, who said doctor? It might be the doctor. Here, I'll get 1 minute. Sorry, everybody gets up. It might be the doctors, but here's a question, who's doctor? Is it your doctor? Because I know what my doctor's going to, we're going to have a discussion about what my doctor's going to say. Is it the company's doctor? Of course. Because the company's going to have a discussion about what they're going to say. Here's a fun thing. If the 2 doctors disagree, you might have to get a 3rd doctor to meet in the middle to decide if you're actually disabled. Sometimes it's really just the disability plan. If you meet the requirements to get the benefits from the disability plan, then you're in fact disabled. Sometimes it's if you're just gone from work for too long. So let's say I break my spine because I was on a motorcycle, gearing it up on a wet and rainy day, and I went down the center rather than down the actual lane because I wanted everybody to see me because I am so fly on a motorcycle. Never been on a motorcycle, which is why I broke my spine. I've never been on one and I'm trying to be fly, right? I'm not dead and I'm not disabled. I'm going to recover, but I have to be out of work for 120 days, 4 months. I might be disabled under the agreement. Under this agreement, it looks like, yeah, on page 8, Romanet 6, 60 days. If you're gone from the office for 60 days, you're probably disabled. If you mean all of this other stuff that we're not going to read because this is not for lawyers, so we can skip it. 61st day, you're considered disabled. I'm like, but dude, I'll be back in 2 months, it'll be fine. My brain still works. Doesn't matter, still disabled, okay? So you want to get that defined, preferably in your favor. Give yourself some time. There's some other things that might have you out. A stroke, actually a good friend of mine, a guy I used to work with had a stroke. 34 years old, he's fine. But he was out of work for a few, right? He didn't have an employment agreement, so he went back to work just fine. Fired for cause. So flip back, we're going backwards, going to page 6. No, I lied, we're going to page 4. So cause. What's terminated for cause?
Feeling.
Done something against the rules of the company. You need to take over secrets.
Violating trade secrets, giving out confidential information, stealing, embezzling is always the perfect example because no one's ever thought that embezzling funds wasn't cause, particularly for finance people. Just saying, y'all embezzle funds, cut me a check, I'm not telling anyone. Anybody else got an example terminated for cause? Come on, y'all know some people who've been fired. I know you have. Yeah.
Conduct, not professional.
Unprofessional conduct. Okay. Anyone else?
Insubordination.
Insubordination. That's a good one. I would be terminated for cause every day of my life because I'm constantly insubordinate. They're just really mouthy. I don't. It happens. Patty's laughing really loud, and that's true. She's tried to fire me 3 times and I said, but it wasn't cause because that's not how I defined it. Anybody else got any good examples of cause? How about if you were a hiring manager and you discriminate against someone? Cause. How about, tricky question, how about if you have a prescription for medical marijuana and you used it yesterday, or you were in Denver last week and got real high. Came back to work, you're fine, they did a random drug screen and you popped. Is that cause?
Under some contracts, yeah.
Let's take a poll. Raise your hand if you think it's for cause, if it's not specifically defined in the contract with your cheating.
Prescription or being in debt?
You, either. Okay, raise your hand if you think with a prescription you're terminated for cause if you popped on a drug screen. Raise your hand if you say...
Illinois?
In Illinois, yeah, in Chicago. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you say it's not cause. Because you have a prescription, right? All right, raise your hand if you went to Denver last week, had a brownie, came back.
Were you there on business?
You were not there on business. Nicely done. Nicely done. That's someone who's worked with some lawyers. You went just for giggles because you wanted to see the mountains
Literally.
and the snow. Real giggles. Things got real funny because you had a brownie. And then you come back to Illinois. It happened last week, but you popped. You popped the drug screen. It was hot. Cause? Cause? Not cause? Not cause? It's not because it's legal, right? You were somewhere where it was legal. And you were having a nice little snack-a-tree bit, had some giggles, came back and you were fine. You did not go to work high. Guess what? Still cause. Because you violated law. But Francine, I didn't violate any laws. It's illegal under federal law. There's a whole presentation behind that about why it is. I don't have time for it now. But it's an interesting subject, right? Because the states are saying, all right, we're just going to pretend like we don't know that you're doing this. But technically still illegal. So probably cause is the moral of that story.
What was the first one, not cause? Yeah.
Both of them are technically violating law. So how do you get out of things like that? You accept it in the agreement if you want to admit that you are in fact using medical marijuana. That one's really interesting. There was a case that went up that's finally been decided in Colorado, went up to their Supreme Court. It was a guy who had medical marijuana. He was using his prescription. He sued under the Americans with Disabilities Act. He lost. He lost, yeah, because it's still technically illegal under federal law. So, sucked. He worked for one of the cable companies, I want to say DirecTV. He was a quadriplegic, and he needed it. Lost. Yeah.
But can you negotiate that or present that when you get hired?
I can, but let's talk about whether you want to tell your employer that you're using medical marijuana.
Having you have a legally binding contract that says it's okay to do something that's illegal.
Yeah,
I mean, what if my contract is okay to shoot an employee I don't like, an employee that's
It
subordinate?
won't stop you from getting arrested. So, that's a fun legal question. So we could probably have a 60-minute discussion about it, but what I think, just shooting from the hip, no pun intended, is that for that, you would write into the contract that so long as you're participating in activity that's legal pursuant to state law, it will not qualify for cause. All you want is to get it out of the cause, the land of cause. Getting terminated without cause is fine. Yo, Francine, I don't like that you wore purple today. I hate purple. It makes me sick. You're fired. Okay. Where's my severance? You know, it sucks, but where's my severance? Now I have to find another job. Fortunately, I know a few recruiters. But you can do that. It's just for a cause. Anybody have any guesses why you don't want to get terminated with cause? Why might cause be a bad thing? Why are we not down for cause?
No severance.
No severance, that's right. So, and then good reason. Anybody had any good reasons to quit? Like a real good reason? Safe space.
Hostile workspace.
Hostile work environment, good works. Anybody else? Got a good reason, like a good reason to quit.
Like an unethical boss.
Unethical boss, yeah.
Relocation.
Relocation is a good one. Anybody else got any good reasons to quit? Anybody? Because they don't let you wear yoga pants to work. I feel like that's a good reason. Is it not a good reason? So of those, relocation wins the prize. Who said that? I got some mints. I can't throw it back there. Just how you.
A relay.
Relay, I love it. All right, so good reason is a defined term. That's why it's got capital letters. There's IRS section that defines how that might be defined, but basically it's relocation farther than a certain number of miles away, diminishing duties, diminishing salary, maybe, doesn't count if you agree to it. You'll notice there's an entire page dedicated to it. It's because it's an actual defined term, and there are certain things that must exist so that you don't end up paying excess taxes on it. And who likes paying taxes? Who wants to give the government extra money? Yep, nobody. So, good reason is, defined term. Your battery's running low, so if it goes away, that's why I didn't bring it. Moving on. So I call this the post-breakup. This is Guy trying to get away with the ball and chain. See it? He's trying to get out. Duties of the parties on termination. Severance, now we get to talk about it. We're going to skip 409A, elements of the severance package, terms of materials, execution of release. Okay, so we are moving on to page 10. We're going to skip over page 10. Anybody familiar with change of control?
Yes.
Anybody lived through it? Yeah. Anybody want to talk about it? No? Anybody have any questions about change in control? Should I define it? Change in control is when your company is basically purchased or changes. The control, the people in charge, changes in a major, major way. Company is purchased, stock is sold, etc. Okay? Things happen in employment agreements under a change in control. Often, it's severance is number one. Often there are kickers, like retention bonus, that kind of thing. What happens to your stock? It accelerates everything best. So it's kind of a big deal. And a lot of people who work for the smaller companies whose goal is to get purchased, that's a really important part of the agreement. Yeah?
So you bring out a new CEO and you were hired under the old CEO, is that a change of control?
That is not. That is not. It actually has to be the control of the company. So the stock, majority of the stock is bought by someone else. The board of directors get booted. All of them, or the majority gets booted. If the new CEO comes in and fires everybody, which happens often, it typically trickles down because people want to bring in their own folks. How many of y'all have done that? You want to bring your assistant with you, for example. There's an assistant already there, but you like yours. It just happens. It's pretty common. Not a change in control. Probably a severance situation. Definitely a termination without cause. Okay. So we're skipping over the change in control quickly. We are looking at. Do I have restrictive covenants next? There we go. Yeah, I have restrictive covenants next. So we're also going to look at the severance agreement You know what, I think the severance agreement is coming next, so let's skip that for a second. Let's just talk about return of materials. Do you know this is so much harder than it used to be? It used to be you just carry your books, here you go, thank you very much, and you leave whatever books you were using in the office. Maybe it was just your laptop. You carry your laptop, boom, here you go, thank you very much, and you leave. What about the document you emailed yourself because you wanted to read it on the plane and didn't want to pay for Wi-Fi and put it on your phone? How do you return that? I mean, you can delete it, but how do you return it, technically? How do you return confidential information that's in your head? You just know it. You design a system, you know how it works. So really the answer is you don't. You just sign something that says I promise not to use it, and I certify that it's been deleted out of my Gmail. But as we all, there's an echo right there. As we all know, nothing ever really goes away. But there's only so much you can do at some point. I have had a company fight me on it. They were just being difficult because they wanted to teach this woman a lesson. They lost. So execution of release is important. That's how you get your severance. That's why you get your severance. And I think that's coming up on another slide, so I'm going to skip it quickly. Non-disparagement. Who's disparaged their company that they work for secretly in a bar over wine or scotch or cocktails? It's okay, I'm going to assume that all of you have, because I know I'm not alone on that one. The non-disparagement clause is more important for you. How many people are talking badly about Walmart that used to work there? Or Target? Or Hyatt? Probably not Southwest, because apparently everybody that works there loves Southwest. But we've all said bad things. It's more important for you. And more important is the people who matter. So no, we don't care what the night janitor says about you, right? That Patty, dude, her garbage, oh my God, she never makes the trash bin. You don't really care, do you, secretly? No. You care about what the CEO is saying, or the chairman, or whoever you're reporting to, right? So that's typically what we do, because the company's going to come back and say, I can't control what everybody here says. There's 12,000 people here. They might have all hated her. I don't know. There's 12,000 people. And what the response to that is, no. We only want this pot of people. Typically, you want to keep it at about 7 or less. You don't want to ask for everybody, unless you can point to a team, right? The senior leadership team. All of them have to keep their mouth shut. That sort of thing. And non-disparagement, why we care is because it's stronger than defamation. Defamation is very specifically defined. There's been a lot of law around it. So the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm sorry, this is super basic, but the way the laws work in the United States, except for Louisiana, is that everything is defined by case law. So somebody sued on it once, and now that's the definition. That's how defamation has come to be. It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. A bajillion people have sued on it, so now we have specific definitions of what constitutes defamation. And typically, it's not going to be something like she was the worst employee ever. She never came in on time, unless it gives rise to. Just know that it's very specifically defined. I'll save you the legal lecture on that. Any questions before I move on? Yeah?
Well, most people, companies have a book of the rules and regulations. You sign that with your employee. Sometimes I have some things that go with this various company. So everybody's signing it.
Right.
So they can go after anybody, technically, right?
Well, what you're talking about is the employee handbook, and typically the handbook only governs what happens while you're an employee. It might say in there, you promise not to disparage the company at any time ever again. The odds of them coming after everybody who ever said that Sears is the worst company ever and the leadership team is going to run into the ground. I mean, how many people have worked at Sears? Not just working there now, but have worked there. So you have to look at, on any side, what's actually important that you need to stop from happening, and not just everything that could technically meet it. Just like coming to an FEI event could technically be outside of your duties, and it's during business time, so you haven't dedicated all of your business time, but of course a company would want you to participate in networking and learning more in your professional education credits, that sort of thing. So yeah, we've all signed it. Yes, the company could come after you, but now we're getting into the land of frivolous lawsuits. Anyone else? Got questions? Anybody got a comment? Anybody want me to move on? Is there anything you guys were hoping to hear about today? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, let's say you go into a small private company
Mhm.
and they're just mortified about the thought of an employment contract. So you're happy to get an offer letter.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about what are the critical things you want to make sure are included in there, and how do you not scare them off?
Yes. So offer letters can be negotiated, and things can be inserted into the offer letter so you don't get this huge big agreement that's 20 pages long. Totally doable. So what you care about is what you're getting paid,
Yep.
how you earn bonuses, when do those bonuses come, what happens on termination. And by the way, just as a side note, if you work from January 1, let's say your calendar year, January 1 through December 31, and you have earned a bonus, you have reached the goals to get your bonus, and they terminate you on February 1st. Bonuses are paid on March 15th. What happens? What happens to you on March 15th? Any guesses? You don't know. You got to put it in the offer letter. You have to at least discuss it. They might say we don't pay it to. You must be employed on March 15th in order to get your bonus. That's fine. If that's what everybody gets, that's what everybody gets. You just want to know. Sometimes it's just about being clear on what's happening to you. So you care about your start date, who you report to, and so right now I report to Patty Bogosh. What if Patty gets demoted? Let's say Patty is now the night janitor. Do I still report to Patty? Or do I report to the position that she has? So you probably want to report to the position and not the person, right? Just things happen. People get shady, people get bitter. So yeah, you still work here and you're making your same amount of money. By the way, that's an example of good reason. Patty gets demoted to the night janitor, which is an awesome job, but she hates being up at night, right? She's a morning person, so that's a terrible job for her. She still gets paid the same, but she's like, these working conditions are awful. I have to be up from midnight to 3 a.m. That's when I should be sleeping. That might be a good reason. So that's an example of good reason, okay? So I was saying, you want to know what happens on termination. How do you get fired? What do you get paid, if anything? What's the definition of cause? Because that's where things get tricky. And bonus. Did I say bonus already? Bonus. And who you're in reporting, who you report to. Those are probably the most critical things. Everything else isn't fluff, but you'd want to know. The other thing, by the way, if you are with a small company that still has equity of some sort, phantom stock options, maybe they're publicly traded and they're just small, it happens. You want to know what the plan says. You're probably not going to be able to change it in any company, but you want to know what it says. Does it have a separate definition of cause that I need to override? What happens on termination? How do you get your options out? How do you get your money out? Let's say you're terminated, your options are vested, because the ones that are vested are yours. How long do you have to exercise them? If you're terminated with cause, they probably get recalled, but you want to know. If you're terminated without cause, you probably don't have that full year you were going to have, or 6 years until they expire. You probably only have a couple months. You want to know that ahead of time. So sometimes it's just information gathering. Yeah.
The other thing I would suggest definitely baking into the employment letter when you talk about termination is everybody thinks, oh, well, give me X months of salary, but don't forget to bake in the benefits. Because when you pay COBRA at 102% or whatever it is now, the cost, that can be pretty steep.
And are they paying all of COBRA, or are they just paying the employee,
Right.
the employer?
Good point.
Other things you want to know. And severance, when you're talking about it, the point is to be made whole. So I get this base salary. What if you're a commission employee? So your base is $10,000, but your commission is generally in the range of 90 to 110. Well, we're paying you 3 months of base salary. That's awesome. That's $1,000 a month. What about all the money you typically earn? Bonus. Do you get a quarterly bonus? What about that bonus you earned? You worked for the whole year. You worked your butt off. I want my bonus as long as I was employed. Can I get a prorated portion of it? Because you're still making money off of what I did. Things you want to talk about. Restrictive covenants. Another thing you want to talk about in any offer letter. How long is the restrictive covenant? 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, forever and ever and ever? What's the scope? This can be either geography or business. You can't do what we do in any of the states where we do it. You can't do what we do in the territory that we had you working for. Those are two different things. Let's say I'm picking on Walmart because they're just top of mind right now. You can't do what we do in any state or anywhere where we do it. How many countries are they in right now? All of them? There's probably a Walmart you don't. Like, you couldn't do what they do anywhere. What if that's all you do? Is that legal? Well, how long is it for? Are they paying you to sit out? Here's my favorite thing that companies do. We want a restrictive covenant of 18 months. You can't do what you used to do here. You can't be competitive, nor can you solicit our clients for 18 months. And we're gonna give you 6 months severance. What? No, these two should match. If I'm sitting out because you're scared of what I'm gonna do, then you should pay me to be sitting out. That's my theory on life. I'm typically on the employee side. Also, is it just their business? So, do y'all remember the commercials? Come see the softer side of Sears. You guys remember those? Okay. So for a while, Sears was just doing what? Auto and lawn and tools, craftsman tools, and then they brought the softer side back. Okay, so Sears is in a lot of spaces. What if they say, you know what? Go forth. Do whatever you want to do, wherever you want to do it, as long as it's not in our business. Could you go work at Target? Probably not, right? Because Target is too big. Could you go work at the Gap? Could you? Maybe. Probably not, because it's clothing, right? Could you go work at CarMax? You probably sell cars. Could you fix cars? Could you sell auto parts? Probably not, because business is so big. So you've got to be really careful. You've got to know how the business is defined. It's not so much that you want to redefine it, although you probably do. You want to get it as narrow as you possibly can, but you need to know the answer to that question. What is the business? And what are the consequences of breach? Let me tell you what the consequences are. They're going to file a TRO, temporary restraining order. Those are not just for stalkers, okay? They're going to file one against you. And you're going to go to the judge and they're going to say, Judge, Garrett's competing against us and we don't like it. Make him stop. It's really, really bad and we're going to lose the $5 million today if you don't make him stop. And the judge is going to say, Garrett, you have to stop doing that until we come back. And you're going to go back a month. Now, you've lost an entire month of income, right? Because your new company is probably not going to pay you while you're not working unless you were smart enough to negotiate that they will and cover your legal fees. Because they're not on the hook for your legal fees either. What's more likely to happen is the new company's going to say, yo, Garrett, you didn't tell us that you had a non-compete. Or if you told us, you didn't tell us, you didn't let us see it. Or maybe we just didn't read it. Whatever, bro, look, you can't work here anymore. Because we are not going to be sued because of what you did. You're not that cool. You're cool, but you're not legal fees cool. And you're gonna be like, all right, but now what? What are you gonna do for that month? So you wanna know what happens. Or maybe your old company says, hey, Garrett, saw that you took that client, know that you love them and they like you, awesome, you have to pay us a penalty. 75% of whatever they're paying you, you have to pay that plus our fee. Okay, thanks, bye. You're gonna say, yo, what? Here's the thing too, y'all are all in finance. You're not working, you might be working directly with the customers or the clients, but you're not building widgets, right? How do I tell a finance person, a CFO, a controller, an accounting manager, a staff accountant, how do I tell them not to compete? I'm counting money for you to make you more money. I'm gonna go count that money for them to make them more money. It's what I do, I'm in finance, I forecast, I budget, I do debits and credits at month-end close. Did all those make sense? Yeah, look at that, learning the business. How is that competitive? Well, technically, you know things that give them a competitive advantage, right? And when you go to the next company, you'll know things that are a competitive advantage. But I would say, let's talk about it, which is legal speak for let's argue about it, which is more legal speak for let's negotiate, right? Pay me to sit out in the market or leave me alone. Either way you want to find out. Doesn't this look like that guy, Ray? He's bald, he was a ref forever, and now he's on NFL Network. You guys know what I'm talking about? He's a referee. He was like the only black referee forever. Come on, you guys know who he is. He has the same mustache. All right, so let's talk about boilerplate. I'm skipping over 409 Cap A. I could put you guys to sleep instantly. It's super boring, but it's important. The moral of the story is don't violate it, because if you do, in this agreement, you get to pay a 20% excise tax on whatever the company paid you. Yay, who's excited for that? So we can talk about it. It's easy to not violate it. You just want to be really certain that you're not. Okay. Boilerplate language is like indemnification, all things. How many of y'all deal with insurance and D&O liability, things like that? Anyone? So y'all know indemnification is very, very boilerplate. Here's what you want to make sure of, that you're still covered after you leave. Not for anything that you're doing after you're gone, but for stuff that you did then, because nobody sues you the day that it happens. They sue you inside the statute of limitations. That's my timer. There's a prize for anyone who can name this tune. Can you hear it? Nice! Well done. All right, so that's 50 minutes. So I am going to blow past this. Just what you want to know about that is if you have to go to arbitration or not, and whose law controls. Fourth quarter is the release. Okay, so that is the final pages of this. So page 18, oh, your computer went to sleep. All right, so we can just talk about it. You want to add, if you have an employment agreement, you want to know what the severance agreement says and what it looks like, because it's probably not in your favor. So not just how much, but what it says, how it gets revoked, what you're releasing. You want to make sure you're not releasing your claims to unemployment. In Illinois, you can get both. Typically, I'm sure there are exceptions, but you can get both, which is how I came out ahead when I left Safeco. The WARN Act, if it applies, OSHA, things like that. So you just want to see it so that you can agree to it ahead of time. Also, the restrictive covenants will be in here, and what happens to you if you violate them will typically be in there. Okay, so my contact information was on the last slide, but the computer went to sleep, so grab a pen. I left you parting gifts of Advanced Resources pens. Behold the pens, in a white way. All right, so Francine Bailey, 2 N's, Francine, not Francie. Bailey, like the Irish cream. EY. So if you want to email me to talk about the job market, recruiting, because you need a controller because yours just quit, senior accountants, so on and so forth, you should email me at fbailey, first initial, last name, at advancedresources.com. Or if you just want to say hi, stop by downtown. We can grab some coffee at Starbucks. I'm an addict. I love it. If you want to ask me a legal question, you can email me there.
I have a question.
How Madison was.
You brought up stock options and phantom stock.
I did.
So oftentimes you get into a company and they're not offering you stock options at inception, but they're offering you stock options as you go along.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously those things haven't been discussed in an employment agreement. So
Right.
I'm just curious how you would bring that up. How would you broach that topic? Certainly you wouldn't have them call you wouldn't have your attorney call them.
Right. Where are we in this process? Do you have the job already and they're offering
Yeah,
you
you have
something?
the job already. You're into the program for I don't know 18 months,
Mhm.
and you've been given stock options. Gee, we like your performance. You're doing well here.
Yeah.
We'd like you to stay on.
Here's a pile of options
Mm-hmm. So
that will vest over 10 years. No, thank you.
correct, or whatever. But
So-
you'd like them to be discussed in
Right.
the employment agreement, obviously. You'd like to know if you terminate, what happens. So
Right.
do I get them or what?
So they're going to give you 2 things. They're going to give you, who's got a sheet of paper? Let me see the sign-in sheet. Okay, so they're going to give you 2 things. They're going to give you this that says, hey Ted, thanks for playing. Here are 5 million options
Right.
that vest over 50 years. You're going to say no thank you, because who wants options that vest over 50 years? A cliff vest at that. And then they're going to give you this. Company A's stock option plan.
Correct.
You're going to read this. And you're going to say, Francine, I have 50 million options and they vest over 50 years. I don't like it. And I'm going to say, did you read the plan? You're going to say no. Everybody says no. Nobody ever reads the plan. That's where the answer to those questions are, though, right? What's the vesting schedule? What happens on termination? Does it have a definition of cause? It might, because they want to make sure that people who are taking away trade secrets can't have their options, so they might define it. It's in the big one.
So the
that nobody
question,
reads.
so the next question would be, are you privileged to try to renegotiate some of that, or it is what it is?
Yes. You can. Everything, in my business, everything's negotiable until it isn't. So you get home and you read the plan, you fall asleep. You read 3 more pages of the plan, you fall asleep, you call me and say, can you deal with this? And I say, sure. I read it and I say, here's what happens to you. You can go back to the company and say, hey, thanks for these options. Here's what doesn't work for me. This 50-year vest, because that's a really long time. Can we talk about a 4-year vest? One of 2 things can happen. They'll say, this is the plan. Everybody has this plan. My favorite line, the CEO even has this plan, so we can't change it. You say, oh, well, I tried. Sometimes, though, they'll say, yeah, what do you want to talk about? And then in that single sheet, that's where it'll get changed. And then at the bottom will be some language, if this is in conflict with the plan, then this will control, that sort of thing. So if you go, so Hershey's, he probably couldn't negotiate it because it's Hershey's, right? But a smaller company, maybe. Because maybe they just took some boilerplate off the internet and they don't know what it says. Don't laugh, it's happened, I've seen it. Yeah.
But from the other side, from the company side,
Mhm.
we have an employee come to us negotiating. At what point, if you constantly are making exceptions to the plan, is the plan that you basically become null and void?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, it's the
There
same
is a
thing about
point-
vacation. Well, you have a whole handbook that says you get 2 weeks vacation
Mhm.
for the first 5 years, and then every offer letter starts out with where you get 3 weeks vacation. At what
Right.
point?
So my question is, why wouldn't the company just change the policy if they're making that many exceptions? They're rarely in the laws, they're just a bright yellow line. You know, if you make exceptions for 10 people, it's fine, but that 11th person now you ruined your plan. There is a point, it depends. It probably depends on the size of the company, what you're trying to do, how important it is, that sort of thing. But yeah, if you're giving everybody 3 weeks, why not just make it 3 weeks, call it a day, make it life easy for everybody. I saw,
You mentioned in severance agreements about negotiating your bonus, so you work, all year, you earn a bonus, but, they're sending you off for severance. In Illinois, though, is it not true that earned wages, regardless of whether they're in your severance arrangement or not, are earned wages and are required to be paid? You obviously have to prove that you earned it.
so it's the definition of earned, that's the problem there. Most bonus plans, attorneys are very savvy people, I might say. What they're gonna put in the plan is, in order to earn this bonus, you must be employed on March 15th. So you haven't earned it. Also, not all bonuses are wages. If there's any sort of discretionary piece to it, then it's probably not earned until they gave it to you as a bonus. That's more if it's very strictly defined. So a very rudimentary example here. If the company makes, somebody give me a number. Any number. 100 million, thank you, in revenue. Everybody in the company gets a 5% bonus. So that's called a bonus, but it's earned once the company hits 100 million in revenue. There's no other caveats, there's no you must be employed, there's no you must be at a certain level. Then that's probably earned and it's probably yours, you get to keep it. So we'd be fighting over the definition of earned. But if there's a discretionary component to it, probably not earned, probably not yours. Any other questions? Bueller? All right, this isn't a pop quiz. Y'all know how to find me. I'm around.
Thanks, Francine.
Thanks.